But first to Bowen in North Queensland, which is still in shock over the destruction of millions of dollars worth of tomatoes. A single criminal act has raised concerns about food security and higher prices for consumers. The sabotage has been devastating for the local economy, and growers are still struggling to recover.
Whatever your recipe, Brisbane's markets have the basics for a feast, and every seller has their favourite.
You can cook them, you can eat them in salads, you can have them on sandwiches. They're some of the best tomatoes we get in the country come out of North Queensland.
But this month, they could be off the menu.
We've got a gap of about 2 to 3 weeks where we won't have supply.
To find out why, you have to go back to the source. At Bowen, North Queensland, prime horticultural land meets the coast. Plenty of sun and a drink now and then means that from September to October, this region usually produces about 90% of Australia's tomatoes.
We've got product contamination and also the willful destruction of crops. They're both offences under the Criminal Code in Queensland, the major penalty being 7 years imprisonment.
Detective Senior Sergeant Dave Miles is part of Townsville's Child Protection Task Force. Normally, he's not the first person you'd ask about tomatoes, but these are not ordinary times. Detective Miles is here to investigate.
On about the 26th of June this year, police received information from a local seedling manufacturer that he believed that he'd been the subject of a poisoning.
At Super Seedlings Nursery, supplier to more than 30 Bowen growers, the water supply had become a poisoned chalice.
Our investigations indicate that access has been gained into one of the water lines that supply the pump systems. Once that access has been gained, the poison's been distributed through the pumping system, through a number of various tanks, including fertiliser tanks, and then the distribution system to the entire seedling factory from here through the main lines.
We lost all our stock, which was 7 million seedlings, would have been, and it was worth 1.2 million, which was a cost we had to accurately calculate for the police.
The owner, Leslie Eisman, better known as Toss, says it took more than a week for the disaster to emerge.
Some had already been sent to the farms and they died on the farms after being planted by the farmers. We had to then immediately contact growers and let them know that there was a problem and that their seedling supply for the next month or 5 to 6 weeks would not be available to them, which they took fairly badly, not angrily at us, but just so disappointed, and because it was a big blow for them as well as a blow for us. That was all our savings, and I was planning to retire in a couple of years, so I might have to prolong that a little.
It really hurts you to think what you've missed out on, what you could have done, because the good years don't come along very often in farming.
Next door, growers Wayne and Valerie Donnelly share the same irrigation system. Their entire stock of 16,000 fully mature plants was wiped out.
Normally I'd pick the same plant for 6 months. Be picking for 3 weeks. We're just starting to get the full production. That's when it hit.
So they hit you right at the start of your picking cycle?
Right at the beginning of our full production cycle, yeah.
Water is the lifeblood of the Donnellys' farm. Their tomatoes are hydroponic, and their crop was worth about $150,000.
My production every year is usually around the same, approximately 190,000 kilo tomatoes I send for market. Then my records all show that for every year. Value depends on the price, market price, which can go up and down.
It's also cost them peace of mind. The Donnellys live alongside their greenhouse and share the water supply.
Yeah, it's scary when you sit back and think that, you know, that somebody would have snuck down there in the middle of the night and put poison into a system that goes to your house, and you live in there drinking it and swimming in the pool and everything, and you've got children and grandchildren, and it's pretty scary.
There's already been a false alarm for her young son, Julian.
He said the water had a funny smell to it, so it was a bit of a panic then. I was like, oh, get out of the shower, quick, quick. But Wayne said, oh, it's just because it's bore water.
We've all got more security cameras than we ever used to have before. You know, if we caught someone driving through our farm, you might pull them up and say, yeah, what are you doing, mate? And now you just tell them to sod off in no uncertain terms, because you don't think, oh, what are they, are they lost? You think, what have the buggers done?
The Growers Association says the poisoning means farmers have had to lay off workers, who are a mixture of locals and travellers. As a result, the entire town is suffering from the attack.
Total damage estimates for the growers and lost turnover, probably about 23 million. For the town, probably close to 50 million, and that includes fertiliser, chemicals, a bit of tourism, shops, pubs, everything.
That's not the worst of it. This isn't the first time there's been a poisoning in Bowen. In fact, it's the fourth. This is where the sabotage began. In 2002, Queensland Seedlings was the first nursery to be hit. In what was to become a pattern, they targeted the water supply, poisoning it with herbicide.
He lost a widespread number of seeds in the order of about 6 million plants on that occasion. In 2005, we had a poison which was introduced into a spraying rig at a local farm, which resulted in 30 acres of crops being poisoned when that sprayed rig was utilised. And then in 2006, we also had a quantity of poison introduced into an aerial spraying rig.
That last aerial spraying rig rained down a deadly cocktail on about 57 football fields worth of produce. On a wet morning, Detective Miles took Landline back to the scene of the 2006 crime.
Someone has accessed the aerodrome area where the poisons were kept and the aerial sprayer was on site. They've accessed the tank to the sprayer, and they've placed a herbicide into the tanks, and as a result of that it's been unloaded onto the aircraft, and from there that aircraft has then gone out and sprayed what they thought was pesticide over a crop, resulting in the widespread destruction of that product. The tanks were kept out in the open over there, and it allowed easy access for anyone to this site.
And are they still there?
No, they've now since moved.
Who spiked the salad bowl? That's the question Bowen farmers are asking after sabotage has poisoned 40 hectares of fruit and vegetable crops.
In 2006, Andy Brackley shared a boundary with one of the affected properties, but his plants were spared.
I think everyone's sort of a little bit shell-shocked at the moment. They'd like to get hold of the chap that's doing it, won't you?
This year, Mr Brackley was one of the growers whose seedlings were poisoned at the Super Seedlings nursery. He declined to comment again, saying the matter was too sensitive.
Do you believe all these recent poisonings in Bowen are related?
We're treating them as though they are, to ensure that we can encapsulate all the information and make sure we haven't missed anything in the investigation of our current matter.
So you could have a serial saboteur?
We certainly haven't ruled that out.
And as for why someone would do that, police say the motive could be a personal grudge, but it's more likely to be commercial, someone looking to make a buck.
We, from an investigative perspective, believe that the individuals or the group responsible for this have done so for a specific purpose in mind, and we believe that will either be to influence the market or to gain a market share.
It could be that somebody wants the price of horticultural products to go up, which is all supply and demand. So if you take out half the supply for the Bowen district, it definitely does start to make it look viable for the person or persons who did it.
Do you think it's a local?
I've got no idea, Sarah. Well, when I say I've got no idea, it would be difficult for anyone out of town to do it, I feel, without having some sort of local connection.
Do you think it's someone from around here?
Geez, I hope not. Look, I hope that people wouldn't do that.
Once a year, Bowen locals kick back and drop a line. The Bowen Fishing Classic draws thousands from the region into town. It's a chance for the community to get together.
Guess what? I'm going to the bigger scales.
And for some to cover themselves in glory. But this year, it's harder to relax.
I think you have to be angry about it. Certain farmers would be.
A bit annoyed, a bit in disbelief, somebody's livelihood and business, so yeah, it's a bit hard to take.
Very angry that somebody will hold people to ransom, number one, and to destroy other people's livelihood, number two. And the other thing, they are angry because they should be able to find out who's done it. And they will find out, I'm sure.
Last month, the close-knit community was rocked by a further development in the case. Police officers raided a Bowen farm, seizing masses of financial documents, but making no arrests.
Now, from those search warrants, in total, how many boxes do we look like we have?
Almost 200.
Police say the raided farm had been clients of the Super Seedlings nursery for years, until this season.
It is make you uneasy knowing that people are suspected are very close to you in farming area.
A lot of the producers are reasonably small family businesses, and they can't be expected to patrol their boundaries all night as well as work their properties during the day.
Queensland's peak horticultural body, GrowCom, says the repeated crop poisonings have wider implications for food security and supply.
The main thing for GrowCom being an agri-political body is to make sure that government is fully aware that an incident of this nature is not just a local incident, it is also a supply chain incident, and government needs to be engaged in maintaining the supply chain and the supply of product to the community.
GrowCom says it will lobby state and federal governments for a relief fund for these types of incidents. But right now, there's no such support.
I think there's a lot of businesses around here, a lot of farmers and a lot of businesses that are going to struggle, and the government says, look, it doesn't fall under any category.
Insurance doesn't cover these acts of sabotage either, so security is now the top priority. The first nursery, attacked in 2002, Queensland Seedlings, has since beefed up its surveillance, and at night, Rottweilers patrol the plants. It's an expensive investment for growers whose wallets are already hurting.
So how much are you spending up on security?
Probably 80,000. That's with our fence and a new fence. We're relocating our water source, so it's not as far away from the nursery, where we can keep an eye on that and have it fenced in as well. And also surveillance measures.
It causes a great deal of concern within the community that this is occurring, and from our perspective, it's something that we want to resolve.